The podcast represent for the youths them. Have a right so we share for we views them. Have a mind and a voice so we use them. Tell me why them a try confuse them. And we a spread unity, spread love in your community. And that's just who we be. Yet still we face scrutiny. Make a choice, use your voice, share your thoughts and human rights. Make a choice, use your voice, share your thoughts and human rights.
You hear a rumor that there has been misappropriation of funds at the government agency that you work at. Who do you ask for this information? You want to know this information. What are you even asking for? And most importantly, what are your rights as a citizen? Welcome to JFJ's Just Tea podcast, where we talk about human rights and youth issues. Today, I'm Kayla Wright, and we're joined by
Dashawn Carter
and
Michaela Douglas.
let's get into it. Today, we're talking all about access to information and, of course, our right to information. Dashawn, do you want to get into what our right to information is?
So it's not just a right to be enough, it's actually the right to see, to retrieve, and to disseminate information. So it's a right that you as a Jamaican citizen have to the information that is stored or created by governments, ministries, and agencies. And of course, this right was enshrined within the Access to Information Act, which was passed in 2002.
Right, Dashawn. And as you said, we have a right to know what governments, agencies, and its departments have, right?
Yes.
So, Nikela, tell us why we should know what goes on in our government.
Yeah, so we should know what goes on in our government because our government, the duty of our government overall is basically to protect its people and to actually act on behalf of its people. So where the government is acting and there's no form of transparency and accountability taking place, how can we actually say there is proper representation? So the Access to Information Act is enforced to actually protect citizens of Jamaica in getting proper access to government documents and information, as well as also allowing the government to show some form of transparency and accountability in showing that they're actually conducting their function.
And I think you can imagine it like, say for instance, we always say that the government really works for us.
Yeah.
So imagine you're a shopkeeper and you have an employee and you give them like a $20,000 a month time to go spend and get stuff for the shop. You want to know where them spend the money upon.
Yeah.
You want to know if them pocket some of the money. You
Yeah.
want to know if they're using the money wisely. So it's tracking all that is going on with your government because you have a vested interest in what happens within the government.
Right.
Your tax-paying dollars
Yep.
are at stake
Yep.
right here.
Exactly, Dashawn. The employee would have a vested interest, just like how citizens have a vested interest in what the government gets up to,
Yeah.
right? As Michaela was saying, there is an Access to Information Act, and that is rooted in the same things: transparency, accountability, and really just knowing what's going on in the country, you know? And that's why it's just so important, because we have to know what's going
You have to
on.
know
Like,
what's going on.
exactly. So under the ATI Act, there is a procedure that we as citizens can do to get information from any public body,
Yes.
right? But before we even get into that, let's go through some scenarios to see if we know who we're going to get this information from. So the first one I have, starting off strong, a police killing. Them go out kill someone. They claimed it was a legit operation. The policeman went about his day, and then they heard nothing about it afterwards, right? And you know, as a citizen, you want to know
What happened?
and what was the incident report and what was the internal review, all of those things. Who am I going to request the information from?
Obviously, the police.
Exactly, the JCF itself.
JCF
Is
itself.
there anyone else that we
And
can?
I think even, let's say, Indicom go do
Yeah,
a
that would
report.
be
I
good
want
as
to see
well.
Indicom's report.
Yeah.
So I'll be requesting or sending a request about JCF and Indicom and say, hey, there's somebody get killed. I want to write it. So.
And we have the right to know that,
And we have the right to know.
Yeah.
So not just because the police. So
Exactly,
we say
and-
everything have to be undercover and we
No.
can't hear anything about it.
Right.
We need to know what is happening in our communities.
And they're supposed to protect and serve us. We also have the right to get information regarding operations.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So in this scenario with the police killing, we see how the JCF and Indicom are the best places to get that information from. That's where they will get the ATI request. But what is an ATI request? Who wants to say that?
So, as in, what's the process of
Yeah.
doing it? As like submitting an ATI request?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've
Like, what
actually,
does it mean? Like, if I said that I
Mhm.
want this information, I'm going to submit an ATI request. What does that mean?
So let's say with the same scenario,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to find out some information from JCF or Indicom. Me not gonna have the cell phone number for the CEO of JCF or Indicom to just call them up and say, alright, me so looking at man in the XYZ community, what happened? Give me a report.
Yeah.
There's a process or an actual channel through which you have to go through,
Yeah.
and that's the ATI request process.
Yeah.
And thankfully, this process is listed out in the ATI Act. It tells you
Wow.
exactly what you need to do. So I think the first thing that you'd have to do is sort of, as we did a while ago, identify who we even want to get the information from and what information do we want from them.
Yep.
So we're not just being any busybody, we're actually ensuring that we're accessing or we're going to the right person.
Yeah.
And I think the next step then would be to make a written request. And so written in this instance applies to many channels. So it can be via email, it can be a fax, you can actually handwrite or type a letter and send it to the ministry or the department or the agency. So you make a written request for the information, ensure that it's actually addressed properly, and it's being sent to the ATI officer of the specific agency or government office that you're sending it to.
Suppose they don't have an ATI officer. How am I addressing it to?
The best thing that you can do, address it to the actual agency, because most of these agencies have emails.
Okay.
You address it to the agency, or actually JFJ has an website that lists out explicitly the different government agencies and the ATI officer that is assigned to that agency. So Kayla, what is that website?
It's called the Right to Know portal.
Yes. So you can go on the Right to Know portal, and it actually does a lot of the work for you with regards to accessing or submitting an ATI request. But we're gonna talk about it anyway, because what if you just feel like, say, you want to go through the entire process yourself?
We'll get to it.
You will get through it. And so once you do that, then Nicola, since you've sent a written application, do I just sit down and just wait? Am I supposed to get a response from them? Like, what happens after that?
After this request is sent and the organization will have to firstly identify that, okay, so we have actually received your message and we're working on it.
Yeah.
Further to that, they have a limitation period to which they are supposed to provide sufficient response to that in relation to that request, and that is the limitation period is actually 30 days.
30 days.
Yes, so they have to up to 30 days to actually respond to the person with sufficient or relevant data to which the person requested.
So I shouldn't be getting this information the year after, 2 years after, because it's gonna stale. It's gonna be old news by that time,
Exactly.
and I probably need it for something that's time sensitive. So I need it back within a specific period. But like, what if they genuinely need more time to process their?
They will also have to indicate to the person that they are behind time, and as a result of that, they are requesting more time response to the access to information act. That limitation period is 30 days again.
Yes.
So yeah, they will have up to 60 days to actually provide sufficient data to the person who had actually requested that information, and generally they are called the applicant.
Yes.
So one of my question here is that many persons some of the time say, I do have information that I'm requesting, however I sent it to the wrong organization. Yeah, so most of the time the organization, even though they have realized that the request that was sent to them is actually incorrect, or not even incorrect, is not related to their mandate, right, they will have to notify that person, the applicant, and indicate that they will be transferring it to the relevant department. Right?
So like, imagine if with the same scenario, I saw that the killing happened, and I saw that NWC was also on the scene or something, and me to send a request to NWC and say, where you are for doing this and where and NWC has a responsibility to redirect that request to the relevant authority. So it's not me, I've got to take up myself. It's not, they can't just say, oh well, this doesn't have anything to do with us. So you have to go and sort it out. It's their responsibility to actually redirect it.
Yeah. So we're talking about like requesting the data. What kind of information can we even ask for?
I think
Like
that
outside of
should-
the
yeah.
scenario we had, like what are some things that we can ask for? Documents.
Mhm. So I think it
Recordings
depends,
even.
yeah. So documents, recordings, transcripts, things like that. So
Okay.
it's, let's say you want to request how budget was allocated
Okay.
for something. You want to request the minutes, the meeting minutes for like some standing committee that was held. So there's a wide range, and I also think that the act explicitly mentions what can be access or what information you can retrieve from the ministry or the government or the agency. And they also, I think the act also explicitly mentions, let's say, the form in which you're supposed to receive the information.
Yeah.
So interestingly, some agencies might actually send you a bill for the information that you're receiving.
Yeah.
So if they have to print it out or if they have to record it on some tape, they may send you a bill. Of course, it's nothing exorbitant.
Yeah.
And if it is exorbitant, so like if JCF go tell you say if we pay $10,000 to access their information
No.
because a top secret and anybody can have it, that is not right.
It's legal.
That is
Unless
illegal.
yeah.
So I hear you kind of getting into it, unless because with everything there's always an unless.
Yes.
So you're telling me that there's information that we can't access. Tell me more about that.
Yes, so we do know that we do have a right to access these government information and support, but it goes to an extent.
Yeah.
And everything, to be frank, go always when once it seems limited.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Everything actually it seems unlimited,
Mhm.
but actually it does have a limitation.
Yes.
Because when you look at it, you have national security issues.
Okay.
So so when you have data now being accessed by every and anybody, it could put the country in dire situation.
Mhm.
And as a result of that, it will depend
Mm-hmm.
on who actually requests to access that information and whether or not it can actually be exposed or
Mhm.
disclosed to these parties without actually committing some form of threat to the national security.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with the whole data protection act, everybody is very sensitive, and everybody, as they should,
Yeah.
they have an interest in protecting their information, and so you have to ensure that you're not you're requesting somebody's personal information.
Yeah.
So again, back to the same scenario, Kayla, because that was excellent. Because if I hear that this person was killed,
Yeah.
and me go say, well, me want to know where you see I'm yard, me want to know if I'm baby mother D involved, me want to know if I'm a penny outside in relationship with XYZ, I cannot access that information.
Yeah.
That's personal information.
Okay. So are there any other types of information that we can't access, or is it just restricted to national security,
National security.
concerns?
So
What
national
else?
security, personal information,
Uh-huh.
also certain parliamentary information or
Okay.
cabinetary information.
Uh-huh.
So once it hasn't been, I believe it was published or
Disclosed, yeah.
disclosed
Yeah.
Okay.
as yet, you can't access that information.
So I'm hearing the national security threats, I'm hearing the personal information, but is there any other type of information that is exempt from an ATI request? Tell me.
So I think the most common one is information regarding unpublished cabinet documents.
Okay.
And so for those documents, those parliamentary cabinet proceedings that are not published to the general public, you have to sort of hold off on that. And I think another sort of category of information that's a bit restricted is information that would sort of prejudice or affect legal proceedings.
Okay.
So those are two protected categories that I remember.
Okay, so let me just play devil's advocate here. Let me give a little bit of trouble. So let's say I make an ATI request. Some of the information is allowed. I'm allowed to ask, but I'm also asking for some information that they can't give me information to. How does that agency then navigate my request? What should they do, or what should I do?
So I'll tell you what they should not do. They shouldn't just dash through the whole request and just call it a day. Because it's actually allowed for them to redact certain information.
Okay.
So let's say you go get a document and some black lines on the document. That's information that's redacted either
Alright.
because it's some protected information, it's personal, it affects national security, things like that we discussed.
Okay.
And so they still will or they should submit or send you the information or the request that you made, but redact those parts that are sensitive or private.
Okay, fair. Okay, so Might give a little bit more trouble right now. Come on, just a little bit rude. But is there a case where these exceptions that we spoke about to making ATI requests also have exceptions?
Mhm.
So there are these documents that we cannot request,
Mhm.
but is there a case where maybe we can request them?
Like a gray area?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
gray
I think
area.
there are situations, and that's where we really start to consider whether the disclosure of the interest, of the information rather,
Uh-huh.
is in public interest.
Okay, public
And
interest.
so,
Okay.
whether if it's to the general benefit or welfare of society.
Okay.
So, whether releasing the information,
Mhm.
the otherwise exempt information, would actually benefit the public and the welfare of our society. So I guess it's a bit of a balancing act. So
Okay.
protecting the privacy of information and,
Mhm.
and governmental interests, but also public interest.
And that goes back to what we're talking about, transparency, the accountability. It all just comes
It
together.
all comes together.
Michaela, anything else to add?
Yeah, and just to play devil's advocate, just to play devil's advocate, yes. So as Dashan had mentioned, where you have public interest as a main component,
Yeah.
you do disclose, you do get a privilege to access these information. However, also where it shows that this information would compare this information comparing it with public interest, it will do some form of detriment to the economic stability of the nation,
Mhm.
and as well as jeopardizing someone's legal professional privilege with
Yeah.
their attorney or whoever consultants it
Mhm.
might be, in areas where it would also create political disruptions and so forth. It would be limited and not be disclosed, most likely.
Ah.
So as Dashawn had said, it is a balance. However, there are certain instances where say public interest would not be or be. There are certain instances in which public interest would not triumph over that matter. For example, national security.
National
Mhm.
security.
Yeah, because our data, we gotta be protected, right? I don't wanna be like, oh my God, what's happening for
Yeah.
Jamaica? Yeah.
Okay, so you heard it here first. It is a balancing act. So we've spoken a lot about, the procedure and what we can request, what we can't request. But let's say we do request and we get this information, but it's not the decision that we wanted.
Mm.
What can I do? Can I challenge that?
Of course you can.
Or do I have to
challenge
take it?
Of course you
Okay.
can challenge it. So the ATI Act outlines procedures for situations where, let's say, you get the request, yes, but the request isn't outlining the information that you actually anticipated or that you asked for.
Okay.
So you ask them for, let's say, back to the same scenario, you ask them for what happened at
Mhm.
the event or what happened during the procedures.
Yeah.
And instead you're getting statistics on the decline on crime throughout Jamaica. That's not what you asked for.
Yeah.
What you can actually do is submit a request for an internal review
Okay.
to the same agency or the ministry or the department that you submitted the initial request.
Okay.
And you're allowed to submit this internal review request once it's 30 days within the 30-day time frame from since the okay. So yes, there are actually situations in which, let's say, the information that you got isn't what you were actually anticipating.
Okay.
So perhaps it's a completely different story or completely different information than what you had asked for. You can't just accept that.
Mhm.
Or let's say you didn't receive the information at all.
Yeah.
So you didn't hear back from the ministry
Mm.
once the 30 days has passed. Or perhaps they chose to not disperse or give you the information because they're like, oh, this is extremely protected, privileged information.
Okay.
And you're like, wait, this isn't protected information. I know that this should be publicly accessible.
Mhm.
What you can actually do, and what the ATI Act allows for, is for you to submit an internal review request
Okay.
to the same agency or the same government or the same department
Mhm.
that you submitted the initial request.
Okay.
So once this request is made 30 days, within 30 days after
Uh-huh.
the decision was made,
Okay.
then it's allowed. And so what this means is that the agency will then have to go in and review the decision or the process through which they decided that either this information is redacted or you can't access this information, or they decided that, okay, we're just going to give you this and not what you asked for.
So when I submit this request for the internal
Mhm.
review, is it going back to the same officer that dealt with my case, or is it someone else now coming in to look at what happened?
So it's going mainly to, it's not going to the same officer.
Okay.
Because then I wouldn't allow for accountability, because I
Mm.
could just say, well, I said this in the first place, I'm going to tell it again.
Yeah.
So this is somebody going higher. So it's going to
Ah.
a superior of the officer. So
Okay,
a superior
okay,
within the agency.
But let's say after that internal review, Nikela,
Mhm.
I still don't like what they're telling me. Is there anything I can do after that?
Well, you'll have to ask Sean.
And so actually, what you could do is that that's not the end all be all. So you can't just
Okay.
take it and run with it then.
Okay.
And so the ATI Act further protects you.
Okay.
So what it actually says is that you can then go on to the ATI tribunal.
Okay.
So you can submit a notice of appeal to the tribunal.
Before you even get into who is on the tribunal, like what is this?
So the tribunal is essentially a panel of 5 individuals that are responsible for reviewing notices of appeal
Okay.
regarding the requests or ATI requests.
All right.
So they look at, let's say, instances where internal reviews aren't successful or aren't to your liking.
Okay.
But also, you don't have to wait to do an internal review to go to the
I can just go
ATI
straight to the
tribunal.
tribunal?
You can go straight to the tribunal. So you can take it all the way to the top.
Okay.
And so you can go to the tribunal within a 60-day time frame. So
Okay.
a 60-day time. So it's longer than the
and that's
traditional
60
30
days since
that
the
we're here.
decision.
60 days since the decision
Alright.
was made. And so you can submit a notice to appeal,
Okay.
and they will review it, and they will review whether the government, the ministry, or the agency was actually in compliance or in contravention of the ATI Act
Okay.
and of your right to information.
I like that. You see how the act is protecting us, and of course, our right to information is being upheld in this
Yes.
way, right? Okay. So we're winding down now. I think we've got a lot of information
a lot,
about
yes.
ATI requests. Michaela, Dashawn, what do you want to leave with the people listening? Like overall, why is the Access to Information Act important? Why are ATI requests important? Why is the right to information important? Last words.
Yeah.
So I like to tell people that the government truly works for you. They're a body, they're a ministry, they're an agency that is working in the interest of its population. And so what really needs to be taken into account is the pillars of accountability and transparency. And these are fundamental in ensuring that our government is operating as they should.
Yeah.
You as a society, as a people, as Jamaicans have a vested interest in ensuring that your taxpaying dollars, your hard-earned money that is going to the government is being used as it should. So every penny should be accounted for. Every act that is done should be accounted for or recorded, and you should have access to that information.
Ooh.
Of course.
That moved me. Nicola, any last words?
Yes, I concur with Dashawn. As you said, the government does work for us, and we should ensure that we keep them accountable and ensure that they're transparent. So as a result of that, we are supposed to utilize our fundamental right to actually access this information. Guys, do not be afraid. Do not be fearful that when you go to these places and request these data, that is actually able to be disclosed, that you will have to provide a justification as to why you want that.
Yeah.
I want to note that under the ATI, you don't have to have any grounds for actually wanting to access that data. You just simply request it, and as long as it's accessible, you can get it. So be minded. You have a right to access your information.
Exactly.
Thank you, Nicola. And there you have it. It's all about access to information. And I want us to note that it's not just you and me that can request it. We have watchdogs out there, whistleblowers out there who are working to ensure that no stones are left unturned when it comes to keeping the government accountable. So it's a tool that we can use, as Dashawn and Nicola were saying. So use it. Use up your right to know. This has been JFJ's Just Tea.